Tenemos un invitado de lujo, aterrizó esta mañana, se va esta noche, pero ha querido estar con nosotros. Es un hombre que ha fundado el sitio web, el cuarto sitio web más visitado en el mundo. Ha resistido los cantos de sirena, le ha dicho no al mercado, porque quiere que su sitio web sea gratis, universal y de acceso para todos ustedes. Quiero que se escuche el aplauso, porque el esfuerzo ha sido enorme, para Jimmy Wales, fundador de Wikipedia, y que se escuche aquí, y que se escuche allá, y más lejos, por favor. Fuerte el aplauso para Jimmy Wales.
Woo! Wiki! Very good. Well, thank you very much for having me here. I understand that they've got subtitles here, but I can't see them, so I hope they're there for you. So this is a really exciting festival. I've never seen such a festival as this, where we're talking about social innovation and also having great bands and music. So I just want to talk today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Wikipedia, but I'm also going to talk about social enterprises and social entrepreneurship, and what my experience has been like trying to create something really positive in the world. So the original vision for Wikipedia is for all of us to imagine a world in which every single person on the planet is given free access to the sum of all human knowledge. And that's what we're doing at Wikipedia. Over the course of the last 12 years now, we've created over 27 million articles. This is across 285 languages. Now, I think this number 285, that's a bit of an exaggeration, actually. We have 285 websites set up, but only about 220 of them have at least 1,000 entries. You know, 1,000 entries is not a very big encyclopedia, but that's where I know that there's a good community there. They've gotten started. They've got 5 or 10 regular users, maybe 20 or 30 more who come sometimes, and that's when it's really launched. So we've got about 220 languages launched now. One of the things about that is that the largest languages of Wikipedia are the languages of Europe in general, but we also have very strong projects in Japanese and Chinese, and we have very fast-growing projects in a lot of the languages of the developing world, and I'll tell you more about that in a little while. My clicker's not working. Oh, there we go. So just to take a look, Spanish language is the 8th largest, and Spanish just recently passed 1 million entries. Yay! Which makes it the largest encyclopedia, of course, in the history of the Spanish language, which of course it has been for quite some time. And it's in the first rank of articles. We now have 8 languages that have at least 1 million articles. We have, I think I have to point this way. It's here, yes. Great. We have 46 languages that have at least 10,000 articles. And we have 120 languages, as I mentioned, that have at least 10,000, and 223 have at least 1,000. So when we think about the distribution of Wikipedia around the world, it's important to realize that although we're very global, we still have a long way to go, particularly in the languages of the developing world. One of the languages that people always ask me about is Chinese, because of course China, quite famously, has a very strict censorship of the internet. And so people wonder, how does Wikipedia cope with this in China? Well, we've taken a very strong position that we will never cooperate with censorship. We fight censorship in every jurisdiction where we exist, and we'll never cooperate. Some years ago, Google decided to cooperate. They went into China to do business, and they decided to censor search results in China, and they got a lot of criticism for that. But we've never done that, and we will never do that. Fortunately, Google left China, and so now they don't do that anymore. But I think it's very, very important. because what we stand for is free knowledge for everyone. It's really, woo! It's really important to remember, access to knowledge is a fundamental human right, and that's something that we will never deviate from. So as a result, the current situation in China, I've been to China twice and met with the government minister in charge of censoring the internet. He's been to the US twice to visit with me. Currently in China, most of Wikipedia is available. They still block certain pages. We can't stop them from blocking those pages because it's their own network and they just filter it out at the network level. But we think it's reasonably stable. Most of Wikipedia is accessible in China, and I think in the long run, more and more will become accessible. Because of this, you know, when I ask you, so how many people here have used Wikipedia? Woo! This is true almost everywhere in the world. In China, you know, in most places around the world, Wikipedia is in the top 5 of all websites. In China, we're only around number 50. So when I met with the minister, he wanted me to say, why is Wikipedia so far behind in China? But I always say it, it's unfortunate that China is so far behind in Wikipedia, just because I like to play with them a little bit. So because of this, we're not as well known in China. However, we have had something of a cultural impact in China anyway. It's the one place I've gone and I've talked to even college students who had never heard of Wikipedia. But somebody sent me this. This is a menu from Beijing. As you can see there, it says beef brisket in Wikipedia flavor. Here's another one, the Wikipedia Bread Company. It's very nice. It's like a Starbucks. Here we have stir-fried Wikipedia. I know that's really hard to see. I prefer stir-fried Wikipedia with pimentos myself. I like it spicy. So all of these menus, people send these to me, and they said, somebody sent me one and said, Jimmy, what does this mean? And I wrote back and I said, I have no idea. But I said, I know who will know, so I emailed the Wikipedia community in China, the Beijing Wikipedians, and I said, what does this mean? And they emailed me back and they said, Jimmy, we have no idea. All of these are different food items. There's no similarities at all. The only thing that we figured out is that most of these menus started to appear just before the Olympics in Beijing. And we think that a lot of restaurants were going to translate their menus for the first time into English because millions of foreigners were coming. And of course, when you type anything into a search engine, what's the first thing that comes up? Wikipedia. So when they were trying to translate, they thought it was that was what it was, Wikipedia in English. So anyway, when we think about this kind of thing and we think about the global nature of Wikipedia, it's a little bit fun to think about how does the content differ across different languages. And one of the great things about it is that it actually ends up being very similar. If you read articles in different languages, it's the same tone. We try to be very neutral. We try to be very factual. Wikipedia ends up being very similar across languages. But it turns out that what people like to read does have some variation. And this chart shows us some content comparisons. Unfortunately, because the way the screen is, it's hard to read, so I'm going to have to read it to you. This is English, Chinese, Japanese, French, gosh, I can't even read it myself, German, anyway. So the first thing you can see here is pop culture, this big green bar here. That is Japan. And the Japanese really love to read about pop culture. And if you know anything about Japan, this makes perfect sense. Japanese people do love pop culture. They love American pop culture, English pop culture, Japanese pop culture. Pop culture is a really big part of life in Japan, and so it's natural that Japanese people end up reading a lot about it. One of the other ones to notice is that sex is in the top topics in all of the languages except for French and Spanish. And I was a little bit puzzled by this. But then somebody explained it to me as like the French and Spanish speaking people are actually having sex. And the rest of us are just reading about it on the internet. So, woo! So, anyway, this is all fun. I'm not sure how valid this study was. It was only a small number of entries. But it does show that there's some difference in what people are reading. On the other hand, when we really dig down a little deeper and we look at what is different about what people are doing in Wikipedia, very often it actually shows more similarity than differences. So for example, people tend to read about their local politicians. So people in Chile are probably reading something very different from what people in the UK are reading about politics, but it's still about their local politicians. So even though it's a difference, it's actually a strong similarity in the end. So every month now, last month we had 516 million people come and visit Wikipedia. This is the 5th largest website in the world. It's a huge population of people who are coming to Wikipedia. And so it raises the questions, who writes Wikipedia? Who are the people who are creating this amazing gift to the world? And why should we want to know who the Wikipedians are? Well, here's one reason. This is a quote from Twitter, and the woman says, "Yesterday I asked one of my students if she knew what an encyclopedia is, and she said, 'Is it something like Wikipedia?'" So when we have this kind of thing, and if you think about today, if you think about a student who is, say, 16 years old, well, Wikipedia is 12 and a half years old. So for that student, the entire time since they've learned to read, Wikipedia at least existed. And then additionally, in the last 5 or 6 years, when they would have been old enough to really start using the internet and start to look things up and learn about things, Wikipedia has been huge. So for that young student, for a 16-year-old, Wikipedia has always existed, and it's a huge part of life, which means that we have a huge responsibility within the Wikipedia community to do a really good job, to make sure that Wikipedia is as good as it possibly can be. So by the numbers, our community is about 87% male. This is the editors. The readers are completely balanced. Everyone reads Wikipedia. But we have a real shortage of women editing Wikipedia, and this is something we really want to change. We want to invite more women to come and contribute to Wikipedia, and we're trying to make changes to make it more welcoming and more approachable. But also we try to do outreach events and try to emphasize that we want to diversify our community. Traditionally, we come from a computer geek community. So we're a bunch of computer geeks, and that's typically men and with tech backgrounds and so on. But we don't want it to be that. We want it to be people from all kinds of backgrounds bringing in their knowledge about things that they know about. Average age is around 26, which I think is fine. And we have about double the percentage of PhDs in our community compared to the general public. So that doesn't mean that Wikipedia is written mostly by PhDs. It just means that we have a lot of them in our community, and we're a pretty intelligent group of people. So now I'm going to show you a video. One of the things, when you edit Wikipedia and you just interact with the website, sometimes it's hard to imagine the people behind it. And so in this video, you're going to meet some of the people who edit Wikipedia, telling why they edit Wikipedia and how it feels to edit Wikipedia.
No, I don't have superpowers. At all. None. No. You could totally do it.
I pushed the button and saved the text. Woo. It was exciting.
You just changed Wikipedia. You just added your own contribution to Wikipedia.
I read an article in The Guardian about this online encyclopedia which everybody can contribute to, and I thought, whoa, maybe I can contribute too as well.
I edited the first time and I think I got addicted to it. I don't get paid anything. I just do it for, something to do in my free time, that's it.
You may start doing it for an idea because you believe in it, but you end up with friends, you end up with lovers, you end up with wonderful discussions, you end up with new ideas, you end up with the new books you're going to write.
You're not writing the article alone. You write a piece and somebody else goes like, hey, I have more, and together you can create articles that are pages long, which you can't by yourself.
Then you have success. You always see, okay, what I've done was successful. And this is great because, so editing is a great feeling every time you do it.
As I say, when I read about Wikipedia, I decided that this is maybe where I would fit in, and I did.
Great, thank you. Super. So one of the interesting things about Wikipedia is we're the number 5 website in the world, but like on any other major website, we do not have advertising. We don't have any fees. Everything is for free. And we're owned and operated by the Wikimedia Foundation, which is a charity. So I set up the Wikimedia Foundation to operate Wikipedia, and the mission of the foundation is to give a free encyclopedia to every single person on the planet. And we exist, woo! The way we get the money to run Wikipedia is almost exclusively from small donations. We do have some large donors. We have very little corporate donors. We have very little, we have some foundation support from philanthropic foundations. But the vast majority of the money is from people like you, ordinary people who donate once a year, $20, $30. And those small donors are what keeps Wikipedia independent. We don't have to depend on any major donor for support. If a major donor comes to us and wants to give a lot of money, we say thank you, of course. But if they have some strings or some rules that come with the donation, we feel free to say no to that because we don't really need their money so desperately because we already have a large budget that comes from the general public. This is very important. It's also important to us that we know that in order to get money from you, in order to get money from the general public, we have to make you happy. You have to love Wikipedia. You have to say, this is worth donating to. It's actually something I use all the time. And so we have to be, we're independent of any particular influence, but we're not independent of the readers. We have to serve the readers so that they will support us. And the amazing thing is with 520 million readers every month, we only have about 150 employees. It's still a very small nonprofit organization. The employees are involved in software development and keeping the servers running. The employees are responsible for fundraising, for finance, accounting, legal, communications, all of the basic functions of a small nonprofit organization. But the people who work at the foundation do not write the content. They do not supervise the writing of the content. That is all handled by our community of maybe 100,000 volunteers who are very active on the site and who make up the policies and police things, and they talk to each other every day. So this is a really, really unique website in this sense. We are not like a company like Google. We're not a company like Facebook. We're genuinely a group of people who are just trying to create something and give it to the world. So now what I want to talk about is a little bit about how I got here, because this festival is about social entrepreneurship, social business, innovation, and it's really interesting to think about how can we have more successes like Wikipedia, and how can anyone here who has an idea, what are some of the things that I have experienced that may help you in thinking about how to move forward? And so what I really like to talk about is community. That runs throughout all of everything that I talk about, those 100,000 people. This is a really important concept today because for so many things, the ability for people to connect online is completely new and completely exciting. And you can do all kinds of things that you wouldn't have been able to do 20 or 30 years ago if you can get people excited and motivated to help you. Tolerance of failure is what I'm going to talk about now. Tolerance of failure is one of the most important things. And so what I always like to talk about is failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. This is a really important part of my life. I have had so many really stupid ideas, you have no idea. And so I want to go a little bit through my career and my history and tell you about some of the stupid ideas that I've had. So I used to work in Chicago. I lived in downtown Chicago, and I noticed that this was in, say, 1996, and we were pardon? People would order food. So you order food to get lunch. And so people would send in faxes, or they would call, or you send someone out to get lunch. And I thought, I was a very big user of the internet, and I thought, oh, this is silly. This is obviously going to be on the internet. You should be able to go on the internet, order food, and have it delivered to your office. A very simple idea. And it was a brilliant business idea. You could get everything onto the internet, and it would be a big, big success. And what was the result? Failure. Jimmy Wales is really good at it. In 1996, restaurant owners looked at me like I was from Mars. It was too early. Nobody really understood the internet back then. And when you went to them and you said, you should accept internet orders, they would say, what is that? Is that like a fax? I don't really understand what you're talking about. So it was impossible to sign up restaurants at that time. Well, that didn't stop me. I tried something else. I tried to create a search engine. This was a great idea, and I think this is a screenshot of a very early version. It's really hard to read on the screen. I'll zoom in a little bit. It was called 3 Apes, and the tagline said, type your search, and the apes will find it. How is that not brilliant? That had to work. It was a really dumb idea. And in fact, the idea of it was pay-per-click advertising. It was one of the first ideas to have where people could advertise and they could pay-per-click, but I didn't have any traffic, so I thought, oh, we'll have 2 ways to pay. You can either pay with cash, you can buy advertising on the site, or you can get credit by sending traffic. So if you put a search box on your site, you could send in credit, and you would earn some credits, and you would be able to buy advertising. I thought this was a great idea. What was the result? Failure. Jimmy Wales is really good at it. Chinese spammers took over the site within 3 months. I was getting lots of traffic from people, and they would send me angry messages in Chinese, and I didn't even understand what was going on, so I had to shut it down. So then I had another idea, and this is the idea. It was called Nupedia, and the idea was a free encyclopedia for everyone, written by volunteers and put on the internet. So the idea was that it would be written by experts. I hired a PhD in philosophy to design the system. And what was the result of Nupedia? You ready? Failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. I spent about $250,000 getting the first 12 articles through the system. What we did was the PhD in philosophy organized a 7-stage review process. In order to get anything published, you had to submit a request, and you had to be approved, and you had to send it in for review. And it was very, very difficult and very academic, and it was not very fun for volunteers. And because it wasn't fun, people would quit. They would start, and they would quit, and they would start, and they would quit. And we got almost no work done in about a year and a half's time. So then I had a really dumb idea. And that would be a free encyclopedia for everyone. I was a bit stuck on that. I knew that was going to have to be something good. And I thought, I'll open up a website and I'll let anybody edit it. And we'll have no advertising, no sane business plan of any kind. And what was the result? Success. Woo! Even Jimmy can do it sometimes. So Wikipedia, of course, has been a massive success. It's the #5 website in the world. Changed the face of knowledge forever. It's all the things that we know about Wikipedia, and it's very inspirational. It takes me all around the world to talk to people like you, and people are always very happy and excited about Wikipedia because it's the one thing of the top websites where you know it's a community just trying to do something good. So then I never give up as an entrepreneur, so then I created an idea called Wikia Search. This was a new search engine concept. When I announced it, I got an enormous amount of press coverage. This is the cover of Fast Company magazine, in kind of an awesome picture of me. It says I'm Google's worst nightmare. I don't know if that's true or not, but my mother bought 10 copies of the magazine. So this was really interesting. The idea is we were going to have all open source software, freely licensed content. It was going to do everything. We were going to try to be as good as Google, but be open and be transparent. We were going to let the community have control of the search results. People could go in and edit them and change them. All the APIs would be open. And what was the result? Failure. Jimmy Wales is good at it. In this case, the project was going quite well. I was very happy about the results, but this came right at the height of in 2008. When the Lehman Brothers crashed and the banks were crashing. And suddenly we knew that we had a certain amount of investment money and we needed to probably raise another $10 million to complete the project, and nobody was able to raise money at that time. So it was impossible to continue. So even though I think the idea would work, I think it's a little bit like my the food ordering business, because of course that was a good idea because now it's very common you can order food on the internet. This is similar. I still think there's room for somebody to build a new search engine using an all-open community-based system, but it would take a lot of money, and so far no one has done it. So then, you know, the encyclopedia was the start, so I have one more idea, and this grew out of Wikia, that the library is much bigger. So you've got an encyclopedia as a set of books about this big, and the library is all the other things that people might write about. And so the concept here, the brilliant business idea, is to build on the Wikipedia model, empower everyone to build the rest of the library, to focus on making it easy to use, focus on topics that would generate a lot of revenue. And what was the result? Success. Even Jimmy can do it a second time. After Wikipedia, we have Wikia. And Wikia, we call it now the largest website you've never heard of. Wikia now has 100 million visitors every month. The most popular sites at Wikia are on gaming and entertainment. So if you've not run across Wikipedia, it probably means you're not a computer gamer, or you're not watching any of the major new TV shows. So like if you are watching, I don't know, Breaking Bad or Mad Men, we've got a oh yeah. We can talk about Breaking Bad now. I mean, for like a month, I was like, anytime somebody mentioned Breaking Bad, I was like this, la la la. Don't tell me, I haven't seen the end yet. But I just saw it on the plane coming here, so now we can talk about Breaking Bad. What a show. Anyway, there's a Breaking Bad wiki, and it's a very popular wiki where you can go and you can really dig in and learn what the community thinks, and they've documented every last scene of the show, every character, everything that happens. If you want to learn about the science behind it, you want to learn all those kinds of things, it's all in the Breaking Bad wiki. So that is what we do at Wikia, and it's really quite interesting. So to sum up here, what are some of the lessons that I've learned? So, first of all, fail faster. This is a very popular expression in Silicon Valley. I've actually seen somebody credit it to me. I did not make up the expression, but I say it so much that people think I'm the one who came up with it sometimes. The idea of fail faster is when you start a project, if you start a small nonprofit or you start some kind of social innovation business or something like this, sometimes you're going to find out it doesn't work. And when I look back at the mistakes that I made, the biggest mistakes that I made was by not stopping sooner when I saw that it wouldn't work. Let's talk about the example of Nupedia. When I launched Nupedia, I had this great passion. I thought there should be a free encyclopedia. It's just like open source software. I think this can work. But then for 18 months, we just beat our heads against the wall. We didn't have the right system for making it. I had a feeling that we needed to stop doing it the way we were doing. I had a feeling we should just open it up. We should do something. But instead, I didn't. I stuck to the system. I had too much of my ego tied up in the way we were going to do it, instead of thinking, I need to be ready to fail. I need to be ready to change. Many of the other things that I've done, I kept going too long. I remember at one point, my company, we were doing very well in the dot-com boom, and then we suddenly lost all of our advertisers. I mean, just like that, in the space of a month, the revenue of the company fell to being only 20% of what it had been. So I couldn't afford the employees, but we had been making some money, and I just believed it was going to come back. So I didn't fire anybody. I didn't lay anybody off. I just kept going. I had loyalty to my staff. But I realized after 1 year, and I spent all of my money, I had to lay them off anyway. And what I should have done is been more gentle about it and shrunk the company earlier. So you have to be prepared to fail. And this is one of the things that Silicon Valley is really good at. And I think all around the world, people need to be better at it. Culturally, we need to say, a lot of young people are deterred from going into something by their parents or something like this. And they'll say, oh, but you know, if I do this, I'm really nervous because what if I fail? And my answer to that is, if you do something and you think it's interesting and you think it's a possibility to make the world a better place, and it fails, at least you did something. You did something interesting. And if you have to go get a job at a bank, you can do that later. You can always get a job somewhere. In the meantime, you make yourself a more interesting person. And I think that employers are starting to understand this. Certainly in the Silicon Valley culture, if somebody does a startup that fails, that doesn't stop them from getting a job. In fact, it may make them more interesting. For an employer like Google, they'll look at something and they'll say, oh, wow, right, you did this, but it didn't work out, but it wasn't the right time, or we can see that it was a clever idea. We'd love to hire you. Whereas if instead you just took a job somewhere and just worked away and did what your boss said, they would say, maybe you're not that interesting. So I think we need to spread that idea through culture that all of us need to be innovative. If you think about the problems that are facing this planet, the problems that are facing the human race in the next 100 years, they are enormous problems, and we're not going to solve them by doing things in the old ways. We have to think about everything, radically rethink everything, rethink about how we organize ourselves, rethink about how we create encyclopedias. All of these things are possible, but we know that when we start to innovate and we start to do new things, most of them won't work. So we have to take pride in that. We have to take pride in saying, at least I tried. At least I did something that was meaningful to me. And in the process of failing, maybe you learn something. Maybe like me, you fail several times, and then you succeed. And then you keep going, and you fail some more, and then you succeed some more. I think it's really, really necessary. And so the idea is, try those things. Just get started. Fail faster. Don't tie your ego to a particular business or a particular idea. If you think, oh, I have this wonderful idea about how to get cleaner water to people in a poor area, and then you start to work on it and you realize, it's not working, but I've told all my friends, this is what I'm doing. I'm just going to keep going, keep going, keep going. Meanwhile, you have 3 more good ideas that you don't do because you're stuck with your old idea. You can't get too tied up in thinking of yourself as just one thing. You're a creative person, and you're going to try things, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I always think it's better to define yourself as a social entrepreneur rather than as the Wikipedia guy or something like that. The truth is, real entrepreneurs fail and fail and fail and fail. And so one of the keys is to enjoy yourself along the way. I mean, this is really, really critical. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, so let's say you have 2 business ideas and you think, this one's really boring, but I think it'll make a lot of money, so I think I'll do this one. And then you go to start doing it, but you're really bored because it's just boring and you don't like it and it's no fun. Actually, surprisingly, even though you thought it was going to succeed, it probably won't. It won't, because you won't bring your passion to it. You won't bring your heart to it. You'll hate it. You'll hate your life. It won't be any fun. Instead, you say, oh, but I've got this other idea, and it's a little bit crazy, and it's fun, and it's interesting, and it's exciting, but I have no idea if it's going to work, and I don't know, I can't even see yet how I can make it work. So get started on that one. Get started, and if you fail, that's no problem. But in the meantime, you will have had fun. If you're going to spend the next 5 years of your life, those 5 years are going to go by no matter what you do. There's nothing you can do to stop time from going forward. So you might as well do something interesting. You might as well do something that you feel very passionate about. And this is where we really get to the heart of this concept behind this conference, this concept of social enterprise, of social entrepreneurship, is to do things that you think are meaningful, do things that you feel really have a chance of changing your life and changing the life of people around you in a positive way. And if you don't do that, you'll end up doing something that you regret. You'll end up doing nothing. And so I think it's really, really critical and really hard. I mean, I really respect anybody who does it, because it is a huge leap to step out from a job or a safe-seeming business and say, actually, I want to go a different way. I want to do something different. But when you do it, it's the most liberating experience of your life, and I can't possibly recommend it enough. So in the end, if you do all these things, then you will succeed. And I think that we have a real opportunity in culture and in life to be able to succeed by doing all of these kinds of things. Well, that's the end of my prepared remarks. And I just want to thank you all. Woo! Good night. Have fun.